All right. Once again, good morning to all of our attendees. We are going to be getting started now. We're going to hand it over to Adam and Joanne to get things going for everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to New Jersey Tourism Industry Association's annual Advocacy Day, virtually, hopefully for the last time. Welcome. I'm Adam Pearl. I'm president of the New Jersey Tourism Industry Association's Board of Directors, and also in my professional role, I am president and CEO of Art Pride New Jersey.
And I'm Joanne Delvesio. I'm chair of NJTIA's Advocacy Committee and treasurer of NJTIA, in addition to my everyday job as the executive director of the New Jersey Campground Owners and Outdoor Lodging Association. Welcome.
We did it, Joanne. So we're here, and we have to let everybody who's on the call and all the folks that are coming in. I think most folks are familiar with the Zoom webinar, but just to let you know that we are going to be using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen for this particular webinar. So we encourage you to use that Q&A and to check out the chat feature along the way as well. We'd also like to thank today's sponsor, Tempest Inc. Tempest helps destinations across North America be assets to their communities by providing software that strengthens relationships, marketing campaigns that support local economies, and building the best websites in the community. And we'd like to give Joanne and I and the entire organization would like to give a big thank you to Alex Hyman, president and CEO of Tempest. Alex sits on NJTIA's board of directors with us, and we'd like to thank Alex and the entire Tempest family for their continued support.
Absolutely, Adam. With National Tourism Week. It's a time to celebrate our industry and its prominence in the state of New Jersey. We all know tourism is essential to our economy and our way of life. Tourism provides jobs in the state, it generates taxes and spurs economic development. Spanning from the mountains to the shore, from our farms to our cities, our state has many authentic experiences to offer our visitors.
So this morning, we're going to get updates on just how tourism in New Jersey is doing with a view to the upcoming season, an update on COVID-19 in New Jersey, and a briefing on pending legislation our industry must keep an eye on. But right now, we're going to start with remarks from the state's leader, a man who cares deeply about tourism in New Jersey. So it's my pleasure to introduce these pre-recorded remarks from Governor Phil Murphy.
Hey everybody, Governor Phil Murphy here. After a very long year, I think everyone is ready for a vacation. And with our COVID-19 vaccination effort going strong, I'm thrilled to share that we are very hopeful for a successful summer season. In fact, as I shared with all of you in November, because many people may still be reluctant to go to the airport, and because New Jersey is not dependent on visitors who need to travel by plane, we are in fact uniquely positioned to welcome an even greater number of visitors who are choosing to vacation locally this year. This is great news for the tourism industry, as well as for our overall economic recovery. There's no denying that the pandemic hit our tourism industry hard in 2020. Overall tourism spending was down, and visitation to the state was down to levels not seen since 2012. However, through it all, New Jersey has shown incredible resilience. Despite the New Jersey shore counties still held their own, with less than average revenue losses compared with the rest of the state. And because of your continued support of local businesses and restaurants throughout the pandemic, we will be ready for a successful start to the upcoming summer season. Make no mistake, we are not yet out of the woods, but we are working together to come back stronger than ever before. And we're already hearing good news that shore rentals are in high demand this summer. So with all that New Jersey's tourism industry has to offer, we will be well on our way to record revenues and visitation by 2023. I thank you again for your incredible work and your commitment to our beautiful state and sharing all it has to offer. And I very much look forward to being together again next year, celebrating your success in person. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Governor Murphy, for those words. To follow up on the governor's remarks, we will hear from our friend, the person in charge of our state's most important marketing campaigns, the Executive Director of Travel and Tourism, Jeff Vassar. Jeff has a broad range of experience in the hospitality, gaming, sports, and entertainment industries. He is New Jersey born and bred, and we are very lucky to have him in the post as the Executive Director. Let's welcome Jeff Vassar.
Thank you, Joanne, and good morning, everybody. As the governor said, hopefully this will be the last time we have to do this virtually. I'm all about looking to the future, and I think New Jersey has a lot to be optimistic about. As the governor said, we are not reliant on the airports and flights to get us in. The drive market for us is key, and New Jersey is in a great place. People are going to feel a lot more comfortable about traveling this summer and beyond. The vaccine initiative continues to make people feel more comfortable. But I stress, and I think we all know, that people must remember to stay safe, stay smart, because all of the gains that we've made can certainly come to a quick end. I realize that I am the one sitting between you and hearing what our 2020 tourism economics report sounds like and looks like. So I'm going to be brief. But before I go further, I just want to say that our hearts go out to everyone whose job was impacted, their health was impacted, or the health of one of their loved ones, or their businesses had been impacted. We're going to be focusing this year on helping those people and returning tourism to one of the top industries in the state. And I also would be remiss if I didn't thank my staff at Travel and Tourism, who have continued to work so hard in these very trying times. I've never worked with a more professional and passionate group of people than the team at Travel and Tourism, and they have your best interests at heart. And I know they love working with you, and I know you all enjoy working with them. We're planning a two-phased marketing campaign going forward. The first is going to be a recovery campaign that's going to take us through the end of the year. This is going to be using remaining fiscal year 21 dollars. So it's a multi-million-dollar campaign, and it's going to be released later this month. It's going to appeal to people's need and desire to get out and return to some form of normalcy. The idea is to put last year behind them, and most importantly, to improve their well-being overall. Our partners at Dana Communications are putting the finishing touches on the creative, and I think you're going to be very excited about the way we're going to come about this. And I just wanted to show you a couple of slides about how this is going to come about. And hopefully my screen sharing capabilities are good. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Yep, you're good. We can see it.
All right, excellent. So just wanted to share with you the how we're going to go about laying out this campaign. Most of it is going to be digital. In fact, the majority, if you include the OTT component of it, is going to be significant in digital campaign. We're going to be focusing on our core market, primarily, the New York and Philadelphia DMA. The secondary market is defined as New York State, PA, Delaware. And with the additional funds that we have, we're going to be going into Ohio, Virginia, Maryland, and perhaps the northern part of New England. As we said, the majority of our travelers are going to be coming by car. I used to say when I was in Atlantic City that we are one tank of gas from a third of the nation's population, and that's a huge market potential for all of us. And in 2020, as we all know, many trips were done by car. People felt safe traveling with their family, traveling with the group of people that they were normally associated with. And this is going to continue into 21 and beyond. And actually, that driving distance is going to get even further out. And with that, seasonally, The bulk of it is going to start, as I said, later this month. Almost 80% of the funding allocation and the buy is going to be in that period, and then 16% in the fall. And then in December will be the smaller allocation as we start shifting into the next component of the campaign. So that's what I had for you as far as what that campaign is going to look like. It's going to be backed up by a very robust campaign of public relations to support that. The second campaign is going to follow at the beginning of the new year, although it will be starting in July because it's the beginning of our fiscal year. We were thrilled that the governor proposed to fund the full $17.6 million for fiscal year 22. And we appreciate all that you did to make that happen. It was a long effort to increase our budget from 9 million to 17 million. And I thank all of you that helped make that happen. And we hope the legislature is going to agree and allow us to expand into new markets, to implement new programs and grow our tourism. So hopefully we will have that new budget approved by the end of June, and we will have the full $17.6 million. I just wanted to share some of the highlights of that campaign. We've already allocated about $300,000 to upgrading and redesigning our website. That was done in this current year's dollars. But having an additional couple $100,000 is going to enable us to add a lot more bells and whistles, such as an itinerary builder, mapping, some other functionality. We're also looking to create a state-of-the-art meeting site to help support our meeting planners and drive them to the appropriate DMO and the individual hotels that support meetings. We're going to have an enhanced marketing campaign. We're going to expand our digital consumer marketing. We're going to test new markets and new programs. We're going to re-engage the travel trade. And I will tell you, it's in a very exciting time to be able to do this because we're going to be able to test new things that we didn't have the money or we didn't have the capacity to really take advantage of. And so I think 22 is going to be a great year for us. Trade shows. We're going to expand the number of shows we attend and work with all of you, all of our partners to make attendance more cost effective for you. Many of you have seen the new booth that we introduced last year. It's a great booth. We won an award this year for the photography and the graphics that we utilized in the trade show booth, and we want to get out there and use it a lot more. Research. We're going to do more in-depth research into our visitors, where they're coming from, what they're doing, what assets they're taking advantage of. And we want to make smarter decisions based on what our visitors are doing, and our research is going to be able to enhance that. International outreach. We know that the international market isn't going to rebound for us for another year or so, but there's a lot of pre-work that we can be doing preparing for that. There's a lot of content that the international traveler and the international tour operator needs, and we don't frankly have that yet. We're going to start with our PR campaign in those market segments, and we're going to be getting our representation partners up to speed on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and work with them to be able to create that content that I spoke about. In the first year, we're going to be focused on Canada. We're going to be focused on the UK, Ireland, and Germany.
Amy?
And the future is... Hello? In future years, we're going to be talking about China, India, and Israel. Public relations. We've allocated an additional $500,000 for an aggressive PR campaign to support our advertising with Lou Hammond Group. We're going to have more media events, such as the Food and Wine event that we had planned in New York City right before the pandemic shut us down. We're going to have more fam trips for media and tour operators. We're going to have takeovers, such as the New Jersey Day at Grand Central Terminal. That's something that we've been talking about for quite some time. And we're going to create episodes on travel shows, such as Samantha Brown, for instance. And we're going to be hosting remote broadcasts. Things that are going to be of interest to all of you, more co-op programs. We're going to have a pool of funds to partner with all of you for research, for advertising, for photo libraries, things like that. So what we're going to be able to do is to get a preferred vendor that we will fund part of and you will then, have to be able to reduce your cost for doing all of those things, so that it'll enable you to really take advantage of some of those things that, frankly, some of our DMOs haven't been able to do. Sponsorships. We're going to work with airlines. We're going to work with our statewide association partners and others where our interests align to be able to fund more tourism promotion. And last but not least, grants. We're going to be able to increase the amount of our DMO grants and our co-op grants, and we're going to be able to help you do more of what you're doing, because you've all been doing a wonderful job, and we want to support that. So that is my report. We have the two campaigns. As I said, the second campaign is pretty much going to start in July, as that's the beginning of our fiscal year. But we're going to take the recovery campaign from now until the end of the year, and hopefully at that point we'll all be ready to go with a more traditional yet more robust marketing campaign. So, Joanne, there's my report.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. And as I just dropped in the chat, just wanted to let everyone know, all the attendees, that we are going to have a question and answer session with all of our panelists after we've had a chance to let them speak. So thank you, Jeff. So as Jeff noted, each year the state hires Tourism Economics to do an analysis of the tourism numbers in New Jersey. And that gives us an interpretation of what to expect. Today we have with us Chris Pike. Chris has 20 years of experience as a professional economist, with the last 15 focused on the tourism market. And Chris is responsible for measuring the economic impact of tourism activity, both broadly and for specific initiatives and projects. So welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to come and be able to present to everybody. Second, while I set up the slideshow here. All right. There we go. Yes, thank you very much, Adam, Jeff, and everybody involved in tourism in New Jersey. My name is Chris Pike, working for Tourism Economics, and it has been our pleasure to be able to partner with the state of New Jersey, working on the overall economic impact of visitor activity in the state of New Jersey. 2020, as you heard the governor say, was a year. It was a year that the pandemic hit and caused closures. It resulted in capacity limitations in a lot of areas, but it really provides a great opportunity for people involved in tourism to show the value of visitor activity, not just in New Jersey, but anywhere. After all, we always like to say, well, this is what would happen if tourism didn't. Guess what we saw? In 2020, there was a period in time where tourism didn't exist. Yet, even with a good portion of the year being a time when tourism didn't exist, the tourism industry is still a very significant industry in the state. And finally, what the other story comes out to be is, and as you just heard Jeff talk about, is the rebound. What happens when it all comes back? As normalcy is able to return, as the COVID vaccines are becoming more prevalent. Now what happens next? And the realization is that all of the changes and all of the losses that I'm going to be showing you have an opportunity to come back, given a little bit of support by the industry itself. So it's really a great opportunity to show tourism's value, not just, of course, to the visitors who we all know love New Jersey and the beaches and the open areas and the business areas up and towards New York City, but also to really then show them the value of tourism to the residents and the businesses of the state. So let's start off and let's talk about the visitors and what they spent in New Jersey. As you heard the governor say, 2020 was not a great year. We're talking about $85 million visitors to the Garden State in 2020. Now, again, that's 85 million visitors that visited New Jersey in 2020. But it was a decline of 31 million in 2020. That's a decline of about 27%. And as you heard the governor say, visitation fell back to 2020 levels. So we're talking about essentially wiping out the whole decade of the 2010s, all of that expansion period, because of the closures, because of the the fear of travel that people had in 2020, that it cut it down to 85 million. But I live right outside of Philadelphia, and I can tell you, people still went to the shore. And especially what you'll see a little bit later on is that the latter part of the year, we did start to see those tender shoots of recovery happening because people were then finding a way to still get back out and do some sort of travel. And it included New Jersey. When we talk about how much was spent, and again, what you need to think about here is the losses are significant, but yet the number is still quite large. Visitor spending fell over a third in 2020, dropping down to under $30 billion. But that's still $30 billion in sales to casinos, hotels, restaurants, retailers, and a ton of other businesses in New Jersey. Visitor spending decreased by $1 billion, and it wiped out the whole expansion, falling below levels seen during the last recession in 2009. Pandemic closures, capacity limitations, even in the summertime. And I was down the Jersey Shore towards the end of the summer. Even in the summertime, there would be signs up saying, we can only serve so many people, or, hey, how about some takeout instead, type of stuff. So it was still affecting things even towards the end of the summer. And as we know now, still even at the beginning part of this year. But as we see things open up, there's $17 billion that frankly is low-hanging fruit that should be able to be brought back pretty quickly. For probably the first time in all of the time period that I've been working with the state of New Jersey on this, lodging, which does include casino gaming, was not the largest category of spending. Guess what? Casinos were closed for half of March, May, and into June. And even after that, capacity limitations were 25%, 50%. Of course, people still wanted to get out. There was a little bit more day travel. There was fewer losses in day travel. What are people going to be doing as they do travel and as they did try to get out in 2020? Well, they're certainly going to be spending on food and beverages, whether you're going down to your second home, down the Jersey Shore, and having to hit up Acme or the other grocery stores, or making sure you go to the ice cream place just to have some sense of normalcy with your family. People spend on food and beverage. 28% of the visitor dollar in 2020 went to food and beverages, or about $8.3 billion. Lodging, which does include the casino gaming, came in at about $7.7 billion. Retail, 18% of the visitor dollar. Transportation, about 13% of the visitor dollar. And recreation, about 11.5% of each visitor dollar. Now, as we look at what happened in 2020, we can look at the individual categories, and there were some differences in how visitors spent their money. Lodging, especially commercial lodging, and especially the casinos, took a larger hit. Behavior changed in 2020 once people were able to travel. Second homes became a bigger piece, so that did support some lodging spending. But when we look at commercial lodging, when we look at the sales tax and the bed taxes that are generated from those types of activities, they were down significantly. In addition, when we think about where people travel when they go on vacation, the ability to spend on recreational activities, a lot of that was severely curtailed. Parks were closed, museums, all of those types of facilities were closed for a portion of the year. And it wasn't until capacity opened up that areas like the Great Adventure or Maury's Piers or those types of areas were finally able to start welcoming guests. But even then, it was limited on what and how many guests and what those guests could do. So it was another area that took a larger hit from visitor spending, because where that dollar sign is in recreation took a hit. Absolutely. We saw people doing state parks. We saw people going for hikes and things like that. They're free. Going to the beach. All right, except for the beach tag, it's basically free. But of course, where people did spend was in areas that were more essential to their travel, which of course, everybody needs to eat and have food around at some point in time. And actually, what we also have seen is when people did go out and travel, especially at times when there were closures, retail did okay, because to the fact that when you went out and did some of you might visit multiple stores, or when you were traveling, you had a longer length of stay wherever you were going, whether it was up in the Skylands, down the beach, or wherever. It did mean you would have to go out and buy the paper products, or go get the hiking, the new shoelaces, or get out and get the beach umbrella and things like that, because you were staying at your shore house longer. Transportation fell the largest because not only did you lose somewhere around 75% of the airport, but you also have to remember that gas prices were down 20% in 2020. When demand dried up, there was no reason for anybody to drive. With no demand, gas prices just shot down. And for a good portion of 2020, gas prices were also down by 20%. So not only did you have the benefit of if you were able to travel, but it was also a heck of a lot cheaper to do it. Because that same trip from Philadelphia to the Jersey Shore cost you a lot less when you're driving in your car. And that was the main mode of transportation at that point in time in 2020. Because of those changes in the declines between categories, there was probably the largest change in where the visitor dollar was spent that we have seen since probably right at the beginning of the 2010s, as we were recovering out of the last recession. The big area, transportation. We saw the decline in prices. So not only did air transportation fall about a half of a percentage point from 3.8% to 3.3%, but local transportation costs also dropped as a share of the visitor dollar. Lodging, as we talked about, no casino gaming for a good portion of the year, and after that there were limitations. Commercial lodging did take a significant hit, so the share of the visitor dollar going towards lodging dropped. But where did you see the growth? Recreation for going up for probably one of the first times in the past 6 or 7 years, from just below 18% of the visitor dollar to 18.2% of the visitor dollar. And again, you can see that over 5 years, it's been a steady decline in that retail share in the visitor dollar. 2020 was an abrupt change to that trend. Food has consistently been increasing as a share of the visitor dollar as people's income grew in the latter part of the 2010s. They were more interested in going to the brew pubs. They were going to, spend a little bit more for that seafood dinner, or, go out for that winery tour up in the Skylands area. So food and beverage had been steadily increasing and jumped because of the type of behaviors that we saw from visitors in 2020 to about 28% of the visitor dollar. But of course, we do have to remember that even though they jumped in share, there was a significant decline in the overall amount of money spent. And what it did end up happening is, you'll notice down the bottom, is the change in per traveler spending. We went from about $400 per traveler in 2019 to just around $350 per traveler spending in 2020. And a big portion of that was in that overnight traveler spend. Frankly, all of it was in that per night traveler spend. When people went out for the day, because they were trying to do more on their day, being unsure of when they might be able to get out, they were spending more to make sure that they covered everything they needed while they were out. But overnight, again, you lose the higher ADRs from any of those event type of activities that weren't allowed to happen. Graduations, all those periods where it might be higher ADRs for the lodging areas did not happen. So there was no ability for lodging to charge higher ADRs during some of those high demand. In addition, you also saw the shift in the type of spending. Longer length of stay means you can average out your lodging spending, and you're likely staying in a little bit less expensive type of lodging. You're also probably staying more people in that house or more people in that room. There's less business travel, so there's less of that solo travel. But what travel did happen, family travel happened in 2020. So you're traveling with more people, even though you might be staying in that same hotel room or same type of house. So that overnight spend did decline. And a lot of that, again, was part of the changes in the travel behavior that we saw in 2020. Of course, we want to move from what it meant to the visitors to what it means to the residents of New Jersey. So we're going to talk about, first, employment. When we talk about the employment changes in 2020, drops of over 30%, 106,000 jobs. That is the annual number of jobs was lost in the tourism in 2020. But of course, you lost 106,000 jobs. You still directly employ nearly 240,000 jobs. 240,000 jobs is about 1 in every 24 jobs in the state. So when you go to that wedding later on this year, when you go to that backyard, when you host that backyard barbecue for 25 people, at least one of those people can definitely say that their job is directly supported by visitor activity. And when you go to that 150-person wedding, 6 people, if you ask people what they did, will likely be inherent on visitor activity that happened in Jersey in 2020, even with the declines that we saw. New Jersey tourism is the 11th largest industry. 240,000 ranks it higher than wholesale trade, educational service, and in line with areas like industries like construction and manufacturing. So still a very significant piece in terms of the employment that's directly supported by the industry. But now it's time to go that step farther. Each visitor dollar that's spent in the state does more than just give money to the hotels or the restaurants or the recreation or the retailers. It also supports all of the suppliers to that industry. The soap bottles that go into the hotel, the wholesaler that delivers the food to the restaurant, the banker and the accountant that takes care of the taxes for the recreational business. Those are all areas that also benefit from tourism activity that happens in New Jersey. As we look at the total business sales to New Jersey businesses, we're talking about $53 billion in business sales to New Jersey businesses that is happening because of that visitor activity in the state. When we talk about value added, what is created in New Jersey essentially? 5% of the New Jersey economy, even in 2020. The overall New Jersey economy, when you talk about the overall value of all goods and services created in New Jersey, 5% is tied to the tourism industry. When we look at the employment numbers, nearly 400,000 jobs, 393,000 jobs, when you include the bankers, when you include the wholesale delivery, when you include the sales that are supporting the tourism workers, because of course tourism workers need housing. Tourism workers are going to use medical facilities to take care of their kids when they get sick. All of that added together is 7% of all jobs in the state. So when tourism didn't happen for a time and period, it put at risk 7% of all the jobs in New Jersey. 1 out of every 14 jobs in the state. And of course, those jobs earn residents income. $19 billion in income that supports those households to be able to spend on their own vacations, on their own groceries, on their own housing. So it's important to remember that tourism supports a lot of businesses, but also supports individuals in New Jersey through the jobs and income that they earn. And then when we talk about what governments benefit from, state and local taxes alone tallied $4 billion in 2020. Yes, there was a decline of about $1 billion from 2019. But if we were to wipe away more of tourism than we did in 2020, you're talking about $1,200 per household in New Jersey that would need to be made up to make up for that $4 billion in revenue that goes to state and local governments in New Jersey. Jeff and the governor talked about it a little bit. What areas benefited? What areas did least bad in 2020? Closures meant that we lost a good portion of the year. So no county was able to be positive. But when it came down to it, the shore did well. The southern Delaware region was able to do better. The Skylands area was able to improve. Outdoor areas, family destinations. Those were areas that did better than others. Areas that struggled were areas that were tied to businesses, Mercer County, state government. Guess what? No state government, no reason to visit. All of the healthcare companies that are located on that corridor, just north of Princeton. Without business travel, there's no need for any of those activities to happen. So those areas in that corridor from Trenton up to New York City, where are more related to business travel, those types of things, fared worse. So what happens moving forward? We talked about 2020. Now let's look a little bit ahead and talk about what we think about what's going to be happening in 2021. Well, we have seen travel confidence increasing. We've gone from 40% last year, right before the summertime, to now upwards of 60%. People's intentions to travel have really surged. You can see that jump right between January and the beginning of February. This is essentially that goal, that hope to travel in the summertime, going from 6 out of 10 to 8 out of 10 people. The money is there through the fiscal stimulus, through the jobs returning. There is the potential for a mini boom this summer. And along with that, of course, there will be changes. As you heard pointed out, there's going to be drive destinations being more prevalent than fly destinations. International travel is still not happening. It's going to be within the US. And there is some reduction in the number of trips, potentially even taking just that one trip that's going to be longer, just because you want to get away, but you're not sure if you want to do that 5 or 6 times. Just maybe that one time and take that chance. It will matter that people feel safe. And part of feeling safe is vaccination levels. The Mid-Atlantic is in pretty good stead, really only behind New England, in when we expect to be able to get to that herd immunity number of 70%. So in the end, we're looking at a good recovery to nearly 100 million visits in New Jersey in 2021, bumping up very close to the full recovery in 2023. Visitor activity is still significant in the state. 29 billion. 1 in every 24 jobs directly supported by visitor activity, and 4 billion in state and local taxes. But it is not to ignore the fact that the pandemic happened, slicing 17 billion from visitor sales, taking $1 billion out of state and local government finances, and 106,000 jobs. But it's important. Just some visualizations. Think of a stack of $20 bills. It would reach 100 miles high, or essentially for Maury's Pier to Great Adventure. The 393,000 jobs would be enough for every resident of Mercer County. The 53 billion in total impacts in 2020, that's essentially the same size as the whole cruise industry in the US in 2019. So, in 2020, losses were large, but the industry, even after that, is still large, and recovery is going to be even more impressive once we are able to get to that point. With that, I thank you very much, and I turn it back over to Adam and Joanne.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, for those statistics. And I'm sure that, I already see some questions and answers, questions in the chat box. We will be responding to the questions at the end. So if you have questions, just hold on to them. And the speakers will be more than happy to answer those questions at the end of the presentation. Well, it would be unusual for us to hear from our next speaker, but COVID-19 has changed all that. Today, we hang on her and the New Jersey Department of Health's every word. Dr. Meg Fisher is a special advisor. She is the medical director of clinical and academic excellence at Monmouth Medical Center, and she's the clinical professor of pediatrics at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson School of Medicine. We're deeply honored to have Dr. Meg Fisher with us this morning to give us a New Jersey COVID-19 update. Welcome, Dr. Fisher. We need to unmute you, Dr.
Yeah,
Fisher.
there we go. Thank you so much. My apologies, trying to get my slides here. I'm not as adept as I should be with this. Okay, it's a pleasure for me to be here today and to talk to you about what's happening with COVID-19 and particularly what's happening with the vaccines, and also to enlist your help in helping us to get people vaccinated here in New Jersey. So let me start by saying, whenever you talk about COVID-19, you have to have a disclaimer. This is what's accurate as of today. Tomorrow things change. Next week things change. By the time I'm done today, whatever I said may have been changed. But you all know the good news as far as tourism goes. The state is reopening. You heard from the governor at the beginning of this presentation. And on May 3rd, the governor announced these changes. Now, why can we make such changes? Well, the reason is that cases of COVID-19 have continued to drop in New Jersey for the last several weeks. Hospitalizations are also dropping. Our vaccinations are increasing, and now we have more than 4 million people who have gotten one dose of the vaccine and over 3 million who are fully immunized. Remember, our goal is 4.7 million by the end of June, and we're hoping that we will be able to get there, but getting people immunized is going to be more difficult, and we're going to need everyone's help in order to do it. And remember, this is the plan for reopening. It's already going to start this week, and then by the 19th, many of the restrictions will be taken away. And that's great news for us. But in order for us to keep those restrictions away and keep New Jersey opening, we have to get more people vaccinated, and we have to continue to use the other methods like wearing a mask, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands, all of those things, keeping that 6-foot distance, because that's the way that we'll stop the variants and the regular COVID-19. So what about vaccinations? Well, I just remind you that vaccinations are safe, they're effective, and they're free. You can get a vaccine, whether you're insured, uninsured, documented, undocumented. Everyone who lives, works, or is educated in New Jersey is eligible for those free vaccines. Sorry. So why do we want you to be vaccinated? Not only will you protect yourself, but you will protect others. So as we get the majority of the population vaccinated, we will be able to continue to open things up because there will be less people to spread the virus from person to person and less chance for the virus to replicate, make new variants, and make variants that will be a risk to all of us. So that's why we stress vaccination so completely. Now, what about the vaccines? There are 3 vaccine brands that are currently available. There's Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson. Pfizer and Moderna have been out since December. Millions of doses have been given throughout the United States. J&J came out the end of February. The good news about these vaccines, you can't get COVID-19 from any of the vaccines because they don't contain the virus. Furthermore, these vaccines do not in any way alter your DNA, and they have no effect on fertility. So we really need to reassure people that these vaccines will protect them against COVID-19, and they will prevent them from spreading the infection to the ones that they love. There are a few people, though, who need to talk to their doctor before they get vaccinated. If you've had a severe allergy to any of the ingredients in any of these vaccines, or if you've had a serious reaction to a vaccine in the past, there's a higher risk that you might have a reaction to the Pfizer or the Moderna. If you're breastfeeding, if you're pregnant, or if you plan to become pregnant, just check with your obstetrician. These vaccines are recommended for people who are breastfeeding, pregnant, or planning to become pregnant, but talk to your obstetrician about, or your midwife, about what the timing of that should be for you. But as soon as you can, please get vaccinated. Now remember that on April 13th, The Janssen vaccine, the J&J product, was paused. And the reason this was done was because of 6 reports out of nearly 7 million doses of severe blood clots. And these were blood clots involving the brain and the abdomen in some cases. Clearly, serious problem. And we wanted to be sure that the vaccine should be continued. So there was a 10-day pause where all of the information was gathered. And then the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices got together, looked at all that information, and said, it's time to lift the pause, to vaccinate again with the J&J vaccine, because the benefits of this vaccine to prevent hospitalizations and deaths clearly outweigh the very low risk of these blood clots. And I think we should remember that the J&J vaccine just came out at the end of February. Already by April, because of the very good monitoring systems that were in place, a question was raised, vaccine was stopped for a time, and now it's restarted because the information is that this is safe to continue. So a lot of people are concerned that maybe the vaccine got made too quickly, maybe we skipped some safety steps or whatever. This is not the case. All of the usual phases were done, but instead of them being phase 1, then phase 2, then phase 3 studies, and then manufacturing, it was overlapped. So phase 1 study where you do tens to hundreds of adults to figure out what dose should be used. Then we started phase 2, even before the phase 1 was completely over. This was with hundreds of adults to make sure there's no major safety signals. And then phase 3 with tens of thousands of adults to ensure that in addition to being safe, the vaccine works. So all of these vaccines went through all 3 of those phases. Manufacturing was begun very early so the vaccine would be available as soon as it was authorized for use. Remember that you need both doses of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, and the second dose should be of the same brand. However, for the J&J vaccine, it's one and done, a single dose, and you are protected from the disease, from hospitalization, and from death. Here's a slide to show you a little bit about the vaccines. The Moderna was tested in more than 30,000, 2 doses 4 weeks apart. Pfizer, more than 40,000, 2 doses 3 weeks apart. J&J, more than 40,000, just a single dose. And these trials are ongoing, so we'll know how long your protection lasts and all of the things that we don't yet know. What was found in all the trials is that the efficacy, the usefulness of this vaccine was the same whether you're a man or woman, didn't matter about your race, didn't matter about ethnicity or underlying diseases. Serious side effects are rare, common side effects are common. And those include pain at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle aches, the things that actually tell you that your immune system is making a response to the vaccine. And those side effects are usually gone within 12 to 24 hours. So how can we prevent spread of this disease? We're already doing it, but we need to continue because we know that the virus has mutated. There are variant viruses out there. We need to protect everyone from those. So wear the mask. Wear it appropriately over your nose and mouth. No wearing it under the chin, that doesn't work. Stay 6 feet away. That's about 2 arm lengths from other people. That's to keep you away from the droplets that people make when they speak or sneeze or cry or yell. So keep that 6 feet from others. Avoid crowds because it's very hard to stay 6 feet away in a crowd and you're exposed to more and more people. Wash your hands often. And as soon as you can, get vaccinated. Remember now, everyone in New Jersey who's 16 and older is eligible for a vaccine. We're also expecting either by the end of this week or beginning of next week that the Pfizer vaccine will be available for children down to age 12. So things are changing all the time. In order for you to get an appointment, we have a phone number or you can go directly to the website And you can now not only register, but you can make an appointment at the same time. So for any kind of people who are working, remember that you can use your New Jersey earned sick leave to get the vaccine, and remind any workers about this. We would also love for you to give your employees some incentives to ensure that they get vaccinated. Now, people have asked, can we mandate vaccine? Well, the state is not going to mandate, but an individual employer absolutely can mandate vaccine for their employees. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about how you can get everyone protected that works in your industry. This is the website that you go to. It shows you how to get vaccinated. And then that blue thing at the bottom, this is the appointment finder. The appointment finder will tell you where you can get a vaccine within your area. Everyone who lives in New Jersey lives within 5 miles of a vaccine site. That's how many sites we have. So we want everybody to take advantage of that and get immunized. If you're not, if you have people who don't like the internet, don't want to work that, use the call center. The call center can now not only register you, but can also schedule you for an appointment. And there are people there who speak multiple languages. So we can really help you to get a vaccine appointment. When you get the first dose, if you need 2 doses, be sure to schedule that second dose and wear the mask. Keep the physical distance even after you're vaccinated. This is a way to learn more. The call center gives you information. We have the New Jersey COVID Information Hub that will tell you all about everything COVID in New Jersey and will give you answers to frequently asked questions. And this is available in both English and Spanish. So help us spread the word. Help us let everyone in your industry know that they can get this vaccine. It's safe, it's effective, and it's free. And we really want everyone to be protected so we can really have that summer that the governor is promising us and that your industry can give us. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. Appreciate it. And we'll bring it back up in a minute. We truly appreciate the update. So our last, hold on a second. So our last section is actually our legislative update, but unfortunately, New Jersey Tourism Industry Association's Executive Director, Joe Simonetta, couldn't be with us this morning. He truly regrets being unable to attend. I'd like to take a moment to thank Joe for his work as the lead advocate for the Tourism Association for the last 20 years. Joe does an amazing job. We've had a bit of success recently, and that's certainly as a result of his work. But Joe would be the first person to tell you that what he does is not enough. We need each of you to work with your elected officials, contact them to educate the tourism. So I'm going to do my best here to fill in for Joe quickly with an update, and then we're going to get away. So the number one item as far as legislative update is concerned is certainly the FY22 budget appropriation. I want to thank the governor, Governor Murphy, for his appropriation and his budget of $17 million, which is a new all-time high watermark. Of course, we need bipartisan support through the legislative review process to make sure that that number is included in the budget. So we're going to be reaching out to you to encourage you to contact your legislators to get their support. And many of you are already working in teams with colleagues in arts and history, but everyone should be reaching out to their state legislators, their assembly folks and their senators about the importance of making sure that that number remains in the final budget. And that grassroots effort will build up from now through the end of June, when the budget must be passed by midnight on June 30th. We are also going to be launching an enhance the advertising campaign post-pandemic. So the Tourism Association is working with the Majority Leader, Assemblyman Greenwald, and the Speaker's Office in the Assembly Assemblyman Coughlin, to request $25 million from the American Rescue Plan to be targeted for advertising and promotion. So this would be separate and apart from the annual budget appropriation. And within that $25 million, there'd be $5 million that would be set aside for approved destination marketing organizations to coordinate local marketing with the Division of Travel and Tourism. Many of you will remember that we dedicated a similar amount, had a similar effort in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. That legislation will be introduced next week. As I mentioned, it's sponsored in the Assembly by the Majority Leader, Assemblyman Greenwald, and in the Senate by the chair of the State Government Wagering, Tourism, and Historic Preservation Committee, that's Senator Beach. They require a significant grassroots advocacy effort. We are not the only industry that's hurting, and so there will be certainly a fight for the piece of the pie. The good news is that the American Rescue Plan specifically notes hospitality and tourism as industries that need support, and so we will be reaching out to you, but we need to elicit hundreds, if not thousands, of responses in that effort. So stay tuned for the announcement on that bill. A couple other federal items on the legislative docket that we've been working on. Certainly, the state and federal, I should say, the effort to work on the employment shortage crisis in the industry. I think most folks are aware that one of the biggest current crises we're featuring right now is getting people to transition from unemployment to a fair wage. And I can let you know that right now NJTIA is working with industry leaders, provide relief and support directly to employers in our tourism industry. And I even saw last night that Senator Schatz of Hawaii has released a bill in this vein as well at the federal level. So I want you to know that we're on it. Task force on this extremely time-sensitive subject actually met yesterday, a bunch of the board of directors with some of the support staff, and we will continue to be proactive on this important issue. On the federal level, the J-1 visa initiative, we are working direct and Senator Booker to encourage President Biden's administration to accept the applications, the J-1 visa applications that were already accepted last year before the pandemic, and to get those folks into the country to support the employment needs, particularly in the coming season. And obviously the major issue here is not just our decision as a government, but we're also dependent on the individuals as far as the pandemic, their visa situations, travel restrictions, but we will continue to work on this important item. Otherwise, as you know, NJTIA is, nonstop. We are currently monitoring over 200 plus bills that directly affect the industry. We have multiple task forces going on, particular one on a view on a long-term view on stable source of funding. And we're still hopeful that we'll be able to launch the idea of new tourism and cultural improvement districts with legislation in the coming year. And certainly a busy few months ahead with both the governor and the entire state legislature up for re-election. With that, I'll wrap up there. Try to keep that brief. And Joanne, you're back.
Yeah.
And
Adam, that was a lot of information you just provided to the group. So thank you. And we'll be sure to let Joe know for him. If we can bring all the speakers back up on the screen for some Q&A. And I see we already have a number of questions, so we can get started.
Yeah, I think the first question here was from Judy Ross. Chris, are online sales included in the retail totals that you shared with us earlier?
For the most part, they will not be. I mean, if they are done while they're on vacation and they're getting Amazon delivered to their second home, then that's going to be retail spending while they're traveling. But, if they're just buying something that's getting sent to your house, it's not going to be included in that kind of retail.
There was another question that was also related to the methodology from Lillian Armstrong. What kinds of things are you measuring for recreation, golf fees, ski passes? You rightly mentioned that many recreational activities are free, but recreational visitors contribute to food and beverage retail, lodging too.
Yeah, we're defining it like the industry is defining it, and we hope like the consumers are treating it. It is certainly going to be your museums, your spectator sports. It's going to be golf, but it can also be areas like spa and other types of outings. It's going to be great adventure. It's going to be more peers, and we tend to feel that there is some bleed into some of the other areas because of the fact of, let's say, if you go to a winery and they charge, let's say, a $10 fee to come in and do a sampling, that fee may be your recreation fee because it isn't necessarily food and beverage in that case. So there's some mix between the official industry definition and how individuals are defining it as they fill out these.
There's another question here for you, Chris. 106,000 jobs were noted in the economic impact report as being lost. Given that, do you feel the industry has experienced such a hiring rate?
So it is an interesting point that we are hearing an issue, and I think Adam just brought it up, where unemployment, the unemployment benefits right now are significant enough that there's a feeling that there may be a disincentive to people to actually be active out there looking for jobs and things like that. I think it's kind of twofold. Yes, there is. I mean, even before, I think that people were saying that they were having problems hiring people, but now you also add the fact that there was a decrease in the overall labor force. Certainly, it's a lot of it made of females leaving the labor force because of childcare issues and things like that. So I think that there will be an immediate hiring crisis just because of the issue of you have the smaller labor force due to women leaving the labor force, and you also have extended benefits that may not necessarily mean people need to go back to work right away because of all the intense, as Adam pointed out. There are people out there that do want to work. The overall unemployment rate, even though that official number is low, is showing that we are still at a higher level and that there are still availability of people. Then it'll also be a question of geography and things like that.
Thanks, Chris. The next question, Jeff, is for you. Deborah Kelly is asking, will the improved website features and enhanced marketing include promoting heritage tourism?
Yes, it will. We have been working closely with with Crossroads of the American Revolution, as well as the New Jersey Historical Commission, to start getting ready for the semi-quincentennial, which is in 5 short years. So we're starting to make a push for heritage tourism, and we're going to be ramping up our promotion of that. So right now, this year, it's certainly going to be part of our work that we're doing, because we want to help all of our more than 140 heritage tourism sites to be ready for welcoming visitors.
I have 2 questions for you. One is, will you be able to share the marketing campaign with us, especially on the advertising part? There may be some of us that are interested in partnering with you or piggybacking with you on some of the ads that you're doing to just make it a more complete New Jersey advertising campaign. Is that possible?
Absolutely. As I said, we're putting the finishing touches on it now. And what we want to do is roll it out to the community again, within the next week or 2, so that, we can, how you can partner with us and tag on. And then, of course, we're going to have another campaign in January, which will have a much more robust.
Second question that I had is, you talked about trade shows. Are you talking about consumer trade shows or business trade shows? I'm just trying to get a handle on the trade shows you plan on participating in.
Sure. We do make a distinction between trade shows, which is just, business to business, and then consumer shows. Over the past several years, we've been doing just trade. And right now, for the short term, we're talking about continuing doing just trade. However, if we get the enhanced budget that we're talking about, conversation with NJTIA about doing what they want us to do for the past many years of getting more involved in consumer shows. So we do have the booth. We do want to roll it out. Up until now, our resources, both human and financial, have been very limited. But, if we are able to restructure and be able to put a more robust consumer show to enhance our trade show component, we're going to do that. So in the short term, we're going to continue with the trade, but as the new budget is approved and as consumer shows come back online, we certainly want to talk to the industry about where we can help and get more involved.
To follow up that, an anonymous attendee was asking about the mentioned grants will be increased. Do you have any more info about that you can share about how much the plan is to increase them, what that might look like?
Well, it ultimately comes down to what our budget's going to be. Adam, what we did last year was, our budget was increased about 25%, increased the pool by 25%. So, we certainly recognize that as our budget grows, we feel that we should share it with our DMO partners and our co-op grant recipients as well. So it depends on what the number looks like and if there's any other requirements that we have. But, we certainly want to make sure that, the increase in the pool is commensurate with the increase in our budget.
And the next question for Dr. Fisher was about reaction to the vaccine. So someone wanted to know, if you don't have a reaction to the vaccine, does that mean it was less effective?
No, it doesn't. We don't normally test after you've been vaccinated because we don't have a commercially available test that actually looks for the antibody you make to the vaccine. But we know that each person's body is a little bit different. So your immune system is working. Maybe you're the lucky one who doesn't happen to get very many side effects. We also know that older people 50 and older, are less likely to have side effects. And we also know that in the studies, they were very well protected. So no side effects, it's okay. You're still making a response.
So this next, I was going to say, I'm going to put these two questions together, and then because we're getting near the end here. So Howard and Dr. Fisher, maybe this is something we could connect you with Howard afterwards, but Howard's asking how he's with the New Jersey Lottery Festival of Ballooning, which is taking place on July 23rd to 25th, can offer their site as a vaccination site or some sort of incentive for people to get vaccinated. He suggested like the Mets and the Yankees, or sure. I love the shot and a beer that came out earlier this week, free tickets, etc., that sort of thing. So he's looking for someone to connect with to work that out.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to connect with you. My email is margaret.fisher@doh.nj. And I put it in the, and we would love to do something like that. And I love your idea of giving incentives. Mandates work, but it's always nicer if we can give so that's great.
I do have one more question. You had stated that employers can ask their employees if they have been vaccinated, and they can mandate that they must be vaccinated prior to them coming back to work. Is that somewhere on the New Jersey COVID website? Because I know we've had a lot of questions from the industry about that.
So to my knowledge, it's not on our website, but it's, if you look at the Equal Opportunity Employers website, there's a lot of information about mandates on that website. And this was looked at very early on. And it is legal to mandate mandate vaccines for your employees.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher.
You bet.
Dr. Fisher, we just have one more question that came in for you. And 25 who eventually want children. I'm extremely concerned about them getting the COVID vaccine. What do you think regarding childbearing young women?
Childbearing young women absolutely should get the vaccine. Get it now before you get pregnant. We know that pregnancy itself is a risk for more severe COVID disease. Also for abortions due to the fact that you get COVID right after you got pregnant, and there's an increased incidence of abortions, preterm births. We don't want that to happen. We want you protected. We know that this vaccine does not affect fertility in any way. We also know that the disease itself doesn't make people infertile. So we have good information that people who have recovered from the disease are still able to conceive. If you can conceive after the disease, for sure you're going to be able to conceive after the vaccine. And the good news is you're going to be alive and well in order to do that.
Thank you, Dr.
I see in here, I've been seeing the encouragement of young children to get the vaccine. Why is this?
So we want as many people as possible to be protected in New Jersey. Right now, young children can't get the vaccine because it's not authorized for their use. And while we know that children are less likely to get critically ill from this disease, they're not protected. So millions and millions of children have been infected with the virus. When a child's infected, that child is capable of spreading the infection to their parents, to their grandparents, to other people who might be at risk. So we would like everyone to be protected. While it's true children are less likely to spread and less likely to get sick, they're not immune from that. So we would like to get them immune by getting them vaccinated. And of course, we really want to get everybody back to in-person school this year. It would be good for the children. It will be great for their parents. And it will be great for the business world because lots of women had to drop out of the workforce in order to take care of their children.
So I know we're wrapping up here. Eric had a question about spreading the word via advertising PR about getting vaccinated, as well as the Operation Jersey Summer Plan that Governor Murphy mentioned earlier this week. I know Margaret, your contact information before. And Jeff, I'm just wondering if you could put contact information in the chat too for Eric to connect with. He publishes 2 New Jersey-centric websites and associated media channels. So I just want to make sure we got to that. Sure. We currently don't have a plan. Someone had asked about sharing the slides. So we apologize for that, but we will. I don't know, Tammy, if I honestly don't know if we're making the meeting recording available. What I was going to say was our panelists, as well as us at NJTIA, are certainly available if you need any of the information, or you need a slide, or you need a piece of information. And I know that that Visit NJ will eventually put the economic impact report up on their website too.
We just want to thank.
Go for it.
Oh, sorry, Adam.
No, go for it. Thank you.
I just want to say we just want to thank Jeff, Chris, and Dr. Fisher again for those 2 Tempest for being today's sponsor.
Absolutely. And I want to mention before we go to please save the date for New Jersey Tourism Industry Association's annual conference on tourism, which is scheduled to happen on Wednesday, December 1st and Thursday, December 2nd at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. So please save the date, put it on your calendar. And of course, we're going to be out with more information on that. And please be on the lookout for emails from us about how each of you can and should contact your legislators to educate them about how vital the tourism is to New Jersey's future.
I want to thank you all again for joining us this morning. We wish you all a great summer season, and we hope to see everyone in person real soon. So stay well, and we'll talk again and see you soon, and have a great season. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joanne.